My name is Nicole LeClaire and I am a language specialist. Thank you for allowing me to speak today at your conference. As elementary school teachers, you are faced with different challenges when it comes to teaching children how to read. Today we're going to discuss dyslexia, what it is, what it causes, and what you can do as teachers to help students who may be struggling to read due to this condition. First, let's define what dyslexia is. For students with dyslexia, they may find difficulty with deciphering reading and understanding language in written form. Developmental dyslexia starts in childhood. An individual can also develop dyslexia after experiencing trauma to the brain, but for the purposes of this conference and your job duties, we will focus on developmental dyslexia that starts in childhood. What is actually impaired for individuals with dyslexia? The first would be phonological awareness. This means the sounds that make up the word. An individual with dyslexia may struggle to understand or comprehend the individual sounds that make up the word. The second thing that may be impaired is phonological reading. So individuals with dyslexia may struggle to read a word out of context by itself. The third thing that may be impaired in individuals with dyslexia is phonological coding. This means that these individuals may struggle to memorize letters or phonemes in their working everyday memory. Lastly, lexical access may be impaired. Individuals with dyslexia may struggle retrieving letters or sounds of letters from long-term memory. In the brain with individuals with dyslexia, studies have shown that individuals with developmental dyslexia have brain abnormalities. It has been suggested that the temporoparietal cortex is less activated than that of an individual with a non-impaired reading ability. It is suggested that dyslexia is not all biological either, but may be influenced by the environment as well. Theories. We have two main theories of reading that are important to discuss while learning about dyslexia. First, we have lexical processes. These processes suggest that we process our letters and words using a combination of eye movements, memory retrieval, and intelligence. Comprehension processes are the processes that we use to make sense of the text as a whole, rather than a single letter or word. For example, when we read an essay, we use comprehension processes involving memory and context clues to understand what the essay is about or trying to convey. And when we read and understand language, we use a combination of lexical processes and comprehension processes. These theories are very important to understand that we do use both of them. This leads us to what you may find to be the most important part of today's presentation. Now that we know what dyslexia is and what is impaired, we can tackle different techniques of teaching language and reading that may help students with dyslexia to become more successful in their reading abilities. First, one approach that I would suggest would be to use the phonics approach. This approach involves taking one letter, then adding another, and then adding another. This approach would be helpful for individuals with dyslexia because the individual may struggle to recall or memorize individual letters, and this is one way to practice that. For example, try using magnetic letters or blocks. Take an A and then take a letter T, practice the sounds of the letters separately, and then practice the sounds of the letters together to create the first word. The second approach, as your students start to make some improvement in recognizing letters, is to use the whole language approach. This approach suggests that you use context clues to read and determine words in the text. We already know that individuals with dyslexia can recognize and comprehend words in context rather than alone. For example, try starting with a sentence such as, "The cat is black." Shorter words in context may be easier to read and comprehend for a student with dyslexia. You may show the student the word cat and they may be unable to identify it, but when you place this into context with "the cat is black," they may recognize the word black and be able to identify the word cat, or vice versa. Thank you all so much for letting me attend your teacher conference today. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have on language, reading, or dyslexia. Thank you for your time today. Lastly, I just want to point out the resource that I used to obtain this information. We obtained this information from the textbook by Sternberg and Sternberg called Cognitive Psychology, 7th edition. Thank you again.